Hey guys, so we're here with Christopher Leppert, and we are excited about the monster buck that he got off of public land. So we're gonna jump right into it here. How he used his NuCanoe, what the hunt looked like, and just hear tips and tricks from him. So, Chris, man, take it away. Inspire
All
us.
right. I'll do my best. That's a heck of an introduction there. So, I'm from the Midwest. I've been hunting whitetails since 1998, and I recently got into public land back in 2017. I had private land farms to hunt ever since I was a little boy, and I could kind of see the writing on the wall that a lot of people just weren't into giving out permission anymore. You have to lease land or really be in tight with somebody. And so I really just wanted to give public land a try. And it was a rough start. You really learn really quick that you're not as good of a hunter as you think you are when you make that transition. And so I got into public land, had a little bit of success, but the mature buck section just eluded me. It was very difficult to get on mature deer because you couldn't bait. There's a lot of things that you can't do. So just a couple of years ago, I started to up my game with scouting, and that really has become the biggest part of my life here recently. When it comes to hunting, I probably scout 3, 4, 5 times more than I actually hunt. And if I don't feel like I'm in the game and today's probably going to be the day, then I just scout and try to learn as much as I can. So, one of the biggest aspects that I found to be amazing with public land is being able to control your access, which brings me to water access. With water access, I can control all of my scent because of the thermal pull in moving or stagnant water. I know what it's doing. So if I'm on a lake or a large pond or whatever that is, I know that more often than not my thermals are going to be rising. And if I'm in a river, creek, stream, anything with cooler moving water with some shade, especially, that's going to pull your thermals downward. And so you can control where your scent goes, and you're never leaving ground scent for deer to pick up on you. And so you can hunt and scout more because you're not really pressuring an area, if that makes sense, as much as you would walking
Yeah.
all over the place. So I had a kayak that my cousin had given me. It was like a Walmart special or something. And it was great. It got me started. And last year, I actually killed on my first sit a really gorgeous mature buck. He had double drop tines and everything. And as I had quartered this deer out and began my trek back to the lot, I flipped my kayak. And that scared me.
Yeah.
When I was a sophomore in high school, my uncle drowned duck hunting. So that's in the back of my mind as I'm out here on the water all the time. And
Yeah.
so at that point, I said, all right, after this season, we're going to invest in something good. So I looked at, God, I don't even know how many brands. I didn't realize how many kayak brands there really were, if I'm being honest. And everything just kept pointing me back to this unlimited, the stability. I know others might track a little better and stuff like that. And I wanted stability. I wanted the weight limit. I wanted to be able to haul anything I could, anywhere I could. And so I made the leap. And, as any of us that have ever bought a kayak know, it's an investment, just like a really good, e-bike or a bow setup, gun setup, you name it. You're going to invest, but I figure, buy once, cry once. So we made the leap. I got the unlimited. I ended up getting, I want to say, the Newport motor on it. Really nice battery and everything. I still have yet to run the battery down all season, actually, and I don't know how that's even possible. So I had a few pretty nice deer that I was hunting, and I went in on my third sit and went up the backside of a tree. I'm a mobile hunter. I do something called one sticking, where you basically can ascend a tree basically as high as you want with a single stick, and then you rappel out when you come down. So it's actually kind of cool.
That's cool.
I went up the backside of a tree. I was probably, if I had to guess, probably about 120 yards from this buck's bed. And he got up, came out, and I missed him at 32 yards. And he's a gorgeous, probably about 140-inch 8-pointer. And it was kind of like a really big low for me. And this is very early. I love early season. So that forced me to shift my cams, all my trail cameras. I ended up finding a really good scrape. And I missed that deer on October 8th. So a couple days later, I went out scouting, found a really good scrape on an oak flat that had red oak trees just raining acorns. The feed sign in there was unreal. And there was a lot of buck sign, a lot of good signpost rubs. I think under this particular beech tree, there were 3 scrapes, 2 more past that. So, and you could tell from the buck sign that it just was different. It was not your run-of-the-mill deer. And I put a trail camera on that scrape, and 5 days later, this mega freak shows up. And I had actually filmed this deer while scouting on accident in May. I was filming a couple of really nice mature bucks, just practicing with my new camera. I went out and bought a DSLR mirrorless setup, and I just was trying to get to know the rig. And when I got home, I put the footage on the computer, and when I blew it up, I thought, what in the heck is going on this deer's head? You know, all he's got is beams and brows, but they're split in like 3 different areas on each side. And I'm thinking, what in the heck are you going to turn into? Well, that's what he turned into. He's working the licking branch. And I just, at that point, you know, like I was telling you earlier, I normally like to find a good deer and go get him in a couple sits and then move on. And this particular instance, all the chips were pushed to the middle of the table. Everything else is put on hold. I think I was going to try to do like 8 states this year with a bow on public, and I put everything else. I dropped everything and said, all right, you know, the majority of my, well, actually all of my videos were super late at night. So the way I'm reading that, and it's only a couple of times a week. So this deer, I'm nowhere close to this deer's bed. He's more than likely bedding on private and coming on to the public to feed. So said, well, if that's the case, you're not going to be able to be aggressive. You're going to have to be patient, and you're going to have to wait for the right time, like a lot of people on private land do. They'll normally not pressure their property, and they'll wait until the end of October and into the first part of November for a buck to make a mistake because he just can't handle it anymore, and he's out, you know, looking for does and stuff. So I wanted to line as many things up as I could, and I had a day where essentially the wind was going to die down next to nothing. In the evening, we had a red moon. So the red moon is basically it's kind of like twofold, so that there's a major and a minor. And you probably even know what it is with fishing, but essentially, because it correlates with feed times big time. So you're looking for the meridian pass, and that's basically when the moon is directly overhead to the viewer. So you're basically looking to target the hour before and the hour after that time. And if you can line that up with like the last hour or so of daylight, there's a very good chance that that buck will move a lot further from his bed. That's the theory anyways.
Yeah.
And there's actually, you know, that's the major, and then the minor would be the moon being directly underfoot. So it's not visible to you at all. And so if you can line that up with, again, the last couple hours of daylight or the first couple hours, then you have a lot better chance of seeing that deer in daylight further from his bed. So it just so happened that the underfoot time lined up with the last hour of daylight, and the wind died down. I am very big with wind speed and the thermal pull. So I hunt a lot of hills, and I could feel once the sun went behind the trees and down over the hill, you could feel the cold air sucking downhill and pulling downward. And what that does is it gives a mature buck something consistent to protect himself, as well as efficiently use his nose to find food, love, you name it. So as I felt the thermals start to pull downhill, I could hear footsteps almost immediately after. And I got all jacked up, and it was coming from behind me. And I looked, and there were a couple of does headed right to me. And I think I should add that a week prior to this, I was scouting, and I found a new scrape that I hadn't seen yet. And it was on a really good hard edge within cover. So like a big row of trees surrounded by a bunch of brush and little trees and stuff. So, and again, the sign was violent. The trees weren't rubbed. They were snapped in half. They were destroyed. And the scrape was wide open. So I had put some doe and estrus all around it and got about 8 feet high in a tree. A lot of guys hunt way higher, but you can only get so high if you've got a lot of underbrush. Otherwise, you won't get a shot. So these does are coming in probably, I'm facing the scrape, so we'll call that 12 o'clock. They're coming in at like 7 o'clock of me, directly behind and to my left. So I'm watching them, and they caught a whiff of the estrus. And basically, does don't care for that because they know all hell is about to break loose when a buck smells that. He's going to be crazy and chasing everybody. So they kind of just turned around and eased back. They weren't spooked or anything, but they didn't want any part of what was going to be taking place. Probably about 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps coming off the hillside and downward, right where the does had come from, and that turned into trotting footsteps. And then I could hear the long tending grunts of what I thought was a mature buck. And I just thought, man, God, please let this be at least a good deer. It'd be awesome if it was him, but if it was just a good deer, that'd be cool, just to get to see some really good action. So just like the does, the buck J-hooked me and went downwind using the thermals to come in and walked toward me on the trail. And I could only hear him. This deer is under 30 yards away, and I can't see anything. I can't even see leaves moving. It's so thick. And he gets to about 15, 16 yards away, and I could see that it was a good deer. So I just immediately drew my bow just in case. And as he came toward me, he stuck his head underneath a low-hanging vine. And when he brought it back up, it kind of pointed his eyes at me, and he noticed me, but it was too late. At 13 yards, I released an arrow that kind of changed the course of things, if you will.
Yeah.
And he runs off and then starts blowing at me. So I'm thinking, like, what in the heck happened? I thought I made a good shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what that's actually a sign of, normally, if I would have hit that deer anywhere else, he would have ran off like a scalded dog, basically, tail tucked, all that. But it was a hit in between the shoulder and the cavity, and I severed the brachial artery. And for whatever reason, they have no idea that they've been hurt in any way. And they'll blow at you multiple times. And then, they basically just lay down and bed down and go to sleep and don't wake up. They expire. But it's just crazy how that particular wound is unlike any other wound, and they don't even know they've been killed, essentially. So I backed out and recovered the deer the following morning, and he had actually died roughly 3 steps from the river. So I ended up pulling my NuCanoe right up next to him. I ended up, and of course, when I first saw the deer, because you really, you feel like
Yep.
but with a deer, with a big deer, you just don't know. They're
Yeah.
so tough. Their will to live is unrivaled, and they're so smart. And he actually died on an island. Like he was very difficult to get to, and
Yeah.
it was just interesting how he set himself up still, even though he's hurt and all that, probably out of his mind from blood loss, and he sets himself up perfectly to
Yeah.
where you can't get in on him without him knowing. Is crazy.
Yeah.
So but yeah, one thing that also was kind of nice, I finally got to experience this perk of grabbing that kayak this season, is I loaded him up by myself and I motored him out by myself upstream to the parking lot.
Yeah.
That deer, I had 2 tree stands, 3 different sticks, a bow, 2 packs, because I left everything in the woods. I just left everything that night. Plus myself and the deer in the kayak, and we could have put, a bunch more in. So it was really cool, really neat experience. And again, the whole killing a booner, a Boone and Crockett whitetail on public land like that. He was 14 scoreable points, ended up going 172 inches, and just a big deer. Really cool. Double main beams, you name it. Just amazing buck.
I mean, I was stopped dead. Like when I saw the photo, I was like, that's big. Like we were the next level for sure. And that's what started. I was like, we gotta get in contact. We've got to hear the story. And it's a good story, man. I was gonna say, so when you switched over, right? Stability was that and weight capacity, #1 thing for you, right?
Number one.
So you're heading out, you're loaded up. Obviously, you are maxed out on the amount of deer weight you're adding to this kayak, because I don't know if they get bigger. Like you have a lot coming in there, right?
So there's a lot. Last year, like I was saying, I had, the buck's head. I had quartered the deer out, and so I had 4 quarters, the buck's head, my bow, mobile hunting gear, and everything. And when I went to get in my old kayak, I flipped it, and everything went into the water. Luckily, I was able to recover it because I was near the bank.
Yeah.
But it was super scary. Even if we throw my safety out there, you spend a lot of money on your equipment, and then you scout all year, and you spend all this time and put all this love and everything into it, and you get that deer. I don't want to lose an ounce of meat. I don't want to lose, the antlers. No part of that deer do I want to donate to a lake, river, etc. So stability, and I will say this much too. I was thinking about this the other day. So I got the gear pod, and the amount of organization that I'm able to have because of that, and extra things like a kill kit with game bags, scalpel, knives, knife sharpener, toilet paper, rubber gloves, you name it, wipes, everything. I can keep all that in there, and it's dry and ready to go when I need it. So that's really nice too.
Just to run through, I know you touched on a lot of pieces of it. Your rig here, so it's GearPod Unlimited. Do you want to go over your motor setup real quick? You touched on it. It's the Newport.
Yeah,
right?
so I've got the Newport, and it's what's
NK
that?
180. Is it the NK 180?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. They just came out the 300 a little while ago.
And it's so nice. I have some adjustments to make because sometimes I do get into some shallower water, sandbars, stuff like that. So I need to move the motor up a little bit. But I just can't say enough. So I'm a father of 3 children. They're 9, 4, and 2. And I've got over 200 miles of scouting on my boots this year alone. And we all want to look cool and tough and gritty paddling out. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to tell my children, Daddy loves you, good night, everything, after my hunt. And normally it's me coming in the door and hugging kids, praying with them, whatever, as they're laying in their bed, falling asleep. So I'm just making it because of the motor. I'm also able to scout more and hit more places and everything because I have a motor. And then when you do get into a sketchy situation, let's say You're in a lake, river, stream, whatever, and the water comes up, more likely like some form of stream, right? And the water comes up, whether that be a hard rain, dam, etc. You can motor against that and get out of there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to float until you find a place to safely beach your kayak. And then, are you going to be on private land after that? You never know. So that's a huge perk to having that motor. And I actually, because of the weight limit and stability, I actually ended up getting an extra chair. So me and a buddy could go out and duck
Yeah.
hunt or whatever. I don't know that I'd want to do that deer hunting, because then if you get a deer, that's a completely different situation, but that's over the weight limit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so super awesome setup. So far it's paid dividends, and I'm 3 months into owning it. I can't
Yeah.
imagine, like, I'm going on a trip to Alabama this winter, and I'm so excited to take it because everybody else is talking about how rough the water is
Yeah.
and everything. I'm like, your water doesn't scare me. I'll just go.
I think you bring up a really good point there with kind of like this idea of being overgunned in these situations, so you can handle more. Like you're seeing, like when you get into the sport, like you quickly want to have a weight capacity, stability that's over what you're going to need it to be, and then the motor capacity, right? So you
Yeah.
have a distance and time where maybe you could get into the sport and you're like, I can paddle. And that might be a fine way to start. But this idea of having that extra level, because we never know what we're going to get into when we go out and do these
No.
adventures, right? Like things
Right.
happen. That's one of the big things with taking these NuCanoes out, right? It's like we're going to be pretty self-sufficient as we go out. We're getting into these situations to get on this fringe of nature and go and explore these areas. So having the ability to handle that, it just pays off.
It's phenomenal. And
Yeah.
you mentioned adventures. For me, I'm a public land guy, and don't get me wrong, I love big deer, clearly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm about an adventure first. And a lot of times those adventures can be pretty dangerous. I took a buck in Kentucky last year where I drove for hours on end and then showed up, and I got all excited because I was the only person at the ramp. Well, I figured out why really quick. A very,
Yeah.
very dense fog covered the entire lake. I couldn't see past the end of my kayak. And when you can't see very well, and then you have a headlamp on and the thermals start pushing that fog past you, you feel like you're doing 65 miles an hour on the water, and it kind of takes your equilibrium away a little bit. And
Mhm.
if you're not in something that's stable, which I was not,
Yeah.
it scares the hell out of you and really becomes a little dangerous. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty dangerous what I actually did. And so that's another thing that drove me, because anytime you get into these bigger pieces of water, and it can be a lake, stream, whatever you want, you run into fog all the time. And so I thought, I can stay at home and not go and feel safe, or I can invest in something where I know that if I close my eyes, I'm not going to flip it as long as I don't lean over. And even then, I don't think I can flip it. So
Yeah.
the safety and my wife knowing that I'm safe is huge to me.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing you want to stress. Like whenever we talk to you guys getting into the sport, right? Anyone coming into this hunting realm of we're gonna access different spots on public lands, we're gonna use kayaks and stuff. Whatever brand you're using, safety is gonna be really important, especially as we kind of enter this new frontier of this hunting. Like things get wild, right? Like there's no putting nature in a box. Anywhere you go, like you have to know your situations, you have to be comfortable getting into it. So whatever the
Yeah,
situation goes, like have the tools to be able to handle it. Whether it be
absolutely.
NuCanoe or something else. For a lot
Sure.
of the stuff we do, obviously NuCanoe is right there.
Yeah. And honestly, again, I did so much research. I talked to so many people that do the water access thing like I do. And I wanted to know, because I'm not so much brand loyal as me loyal. I just don't want
Yeah.
to flip anymore. And I want to have, like, if I'm going to spend money, I want to have the best I can get, basically. And it always came back to that unlimited. I did have a couple people recommend I believe it's the Frontier 12.
Mhm.
And I just felt like the unlimited was a little better for me than that, because of, the added stability and everything.
I was gonna say, what was the driving line on that between the two? Because they're both good options for what they do, but it comes back always to like what for your situation is the right features. So like,
So
why did you go unlimited?
I saw a video on YouTube of a guy trying to tip the unlimited and he fell out and it didn't,
Yeah,
like he couldn't hang on anymore and it didn't flip. And then I noticed that a lot of people were basically treating it like a small Ranger bass boat. They were standing up on the deck fishing,
yeah,
two guys standing up on the deck fishing and stuff. And I thought, well, I don't know that we're going to beat that. And I had seen a few guys with the Frontier 12, and it's gorgeous. I just felt like the front, or excuse me, the Unlimited just offered just a little more stability. It seems like it's a little wider. Am I correct in saying that?
yeah, slightly. So yeah, the stability, that secondary stability line of that unlimited, like you're talking about when they're on the edge and it kind of hits that line, like it's a lot. I've done the same things out there, just trying to test and get around it, and it's I fall out before
Yeah,
I'll ever flip that thing, and it's like I gotta be real dumb. Like I'm up on the gunnels trying to see if I can fall out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge to me. So
Mhm.
it's been a great investment so far, and man, just a cool experience to be able to motor out just a giant, water
Yeah.
access public land. It really doesn't get too much better than that unless I was like camping on a sandbar or something, backcountry camping. It's the only way it gets better.
Yeah, and I think anyone watching this, you saw the photos, right? We have them here. That's why you're here. You're like, that is insane. It's hunt of like, I want to say lifetime, but it sounds like you're going to get some more of those opportunities. But it's just insane.
Yeah.
So like, Chris, thanks for walking us through the hunt and your rig. So to get a little more info about you, like what else are you a part of? Like what else do you do in the hunting world?
Yeah. So run a bunch of different social media platforms. We have a podcast called Fueled by the Outdoors podcast. We are big into the mobile hunting with saddles, platforms, sticks, steps, lightweight stands, all the accessories. And we actually run a trade show for deer hunters that specializes in safety and education for mobile hunting for white-tailed deer, and it's called the Mobile Hunters Expo. They're regionally based shows simply because, like, I'm in the Midwest. Well, I can't expect a guy in Alabama, Washington,
Yeah.
Michigan, Pennsylvania to hold hold his standards to mine as far as a deer goes. They run into so many different things within their regions. So they're all regionally based. We have one up north in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We have one in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for guys in the Northeast. And then we have one for the Southern folks down in Dalton, Georgia. And those will run next year, June, July, and August. If you want to check those out, you can go to themobilehuntersexpo.com. We also have a Facebook page, Instagram page for the business side of that, as well as that podcast I'd mentioned. And then we actually run a couple of groups as well. One is devoted to our podcast. It's got about 22,000 people in it. And it's called Fueled by the Outdoors. And then we have a group devoted to mobile hunters. There's roughly 5,500 people in it. We just started it over the summer, I think. And it is devoted to hunting white-tailed deer, with mobile hunting gear, basically, whether that be private or public land. So if anybody wants to join those and check them out or check our podcasts out, we did do a hunt breakdown, a really in-depth one on my buck and some of the other people on our team. If you want to check those out, we're really big into public lands and conservation as well, and just really want to help get education out there for people because, that's, being safe and being able to use your time efficiently is really important to us. So, education is number one when you're talking efficiency.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome stuff. We'll have links down below, or depending on what platform you're watching this, up in the bio to see all this stuff and learn more. But thanks, Chris, for like walking us through all this. Thanks for being here. We're really excited to see what you do next, taking the boundaries of this hunting public lands to the next level.
I
Do you have
appreciate it.
anything coming up that we should be looking out for? Like any big hunts?
So we have a really, really cool hunt. I'm going to join some really cool guys down in Alabama for a hunt on public land during the rut in Alabama. It's going to be phenomenal. I'm so excited. A lot of people, there's like the stigma that you can't really find big deer in other areas of the country, the South being one of them. And I know we're going to be on some really good ones there.
Not to
So,
prove him wrong. I like it.
yeah, oh yeah, oh that's me, definitely. So, looking forward to that, and looking forward to hitting the water.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining here. And this has been like a NuCanoe shout out segment, and we're gonna have some more of them coming through the pipeline. And I'm sure you guys will see Chris again. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.